trade. How humans and even some animals have exchanged goods and services for millennia. But a trade war? Now that's a more recent development. See, when a trade dispute escalates into a militarized conflict, like the Opium Wars of the mid-1800s, that's a trade war. What's been happening between the US and China is fortunately not that. Which is not to say that the consequences of it so far have not been profound.
China will lose 1%, equivalent to GDP, and US side slightly smaller than 1% point. These two countries are the biggest losers from the bilateral trade tension.
But when two global superpowers face off like this, it's never just about them. We're interested in understanding the dispute in broader terms and figuring out if both China and the US are losing, who's winning? And what does it all mean for the future of global trade in a post-pandemic world? If we're looking at action and not bravado, most agree the trade dispute kicked off on July 6, 2018. The US imposed a 25% tariff on $34 billion worth of Chinese imports. China reacted in kind on the very same day. This tit for tat repeated again the following month. But come September, China was not keeping up. Over the course of the next year, the US would raise tariffs, and China would not retaliate. And then in September of 2019, a de-escalation had begun.
They want to make a deal. Frankly, they want to make a deal a lot more than I do.
By February of 2020, the murky Phase 1 agreement went into effect. We know it kept in place the tariffs on imports from China, which were still more than 6 times higher than before the dispute began. China also committed to buying an additional $200 billion worth of US exports, targets that would be pretty much impossible to meet. This is where things stood until the COVID-19 pandemic happened and changed everything. Around a quarter of all US imports came from China before the dispute began. That's as much as number 2 and number 3 import partners, Mexico and Canada, combined. While the share of Chinese imports dropped during the dispute, COVID brought Chinese imports back up to practically pre-tariff levels. This has everything to do with the types of goods that became necessary during the pandemic, like PPE and home office equipment. For example, the category of textiles that includes face masks has risen tenfold since the beginning of 2020. But with Chinese products becoming more expensive overall, what occurred pre-COVID is actually still playing out and is something economists call trade redirection.
iPad and iPhones and gadgets now are produced by using a very complicated, tightly connected, interconnected supply chain network. So now Chinese products and exports to the US, say smartphone export decline. But demand in US market still exists. So those other countries in Asia who can produce a smartphone and also export to the US market. This is what we call a trade redirection effect.
So which countries have benefited the most from trade redirection? Pre-COVID? Mexico, which boosted its status as one of the US's biggest trading partners over the course of the dispute. But after? Nosedive. Canada too. But some countries have been able to hold on to their winnings even during the crisis. And they are Malaysia, Taiwan, Vietnam, and South Korea. And of that group, the country who got the biggest jolt to its GDP was Vietnam. Vietnam was really well positioned for this moment. Not only is it China's neighbor, but it was already a leading manufacturer, making shoes and sportswear for Nike and Adidas since the 90s, and as the chief source of phones for the world's largest phone producer, Samsung. Just take a look at the change in Vietnam's US imports between 2017 and 2019, compared to China. Cell phones and computers, furniture, clothing, and shoes. There's been an enormous shift in demand, one that has not gone unnoticed.
The last 6 months in terms of acceleration, I would say it's about 2 to 3 times more than the last 24 months. So the trade challenge just, give people more motivations to do it faster versus, conservatively.
But Vietnam's success derives not only from its expansion as an exporter to the US, but also as a recipient of something called foreign direct investment, particularly from Chinese companies looking to dodge the tariffs.
中国有些专家也会说，越南可能是未来东南亚的第一大工业国，所以我觉得越南的工厂的这种投资一定是越来越好，肯定会有越来越多的中国人会到这里来做投资的。
So where do things go from here? Is Vietnam truly a Cinderella story? In a globalized economy, it's just never that simple.
This is only a partial impact. So China-US trade tension may fuel global economy and trade slowing down. And that the overall global economy slowing down is bad news for even country like Vietnam.
Although smaller and latecomer economies like those in the Asia-Pacific region are making gains, trade disputes like this one are just bad business.